All right, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk, where we beat little brother like a drum and come on here and talk about it. Jeff here, Dan, what's going on, man?
Oh, hold that L, motherfuckers. Hold that L. Eat shit.
Oh gosh, it feels good to be in the winners column against Michigan State. Feels good to be 8-0, and it feels good to be rooting on a team like this one that has a lot of respect, a lot of dignity for their program. Team that handles their business the right way. And yeah, just a lot to be proud of this weekend overall. Let's talk about the game. So Michigan State. Michigan goes in. Big favorites. Was it 22? Does that sound right?
It was like 24.5 or something like that.
Okay. They come away with a 29-7 win, so they won by 22 points.
22.5, yeah.
Yep. So they did not cover, but I mean that is what it is. I thought Michigan looked sloppy, I guess would probably be the word. At a lot of times, they had the early fumble. The game was 13-7 at half. They settled for a lot of field goals, but ultimately, I'm never, ever, ever going to complain about winning against an arch rival by 3 touchdowns. So there's a lot to like, a lot to dislike. We'll talk about those things later, but overall, go ahead and give me your quick assessment of the game.
Yeah, obviously the field goals have been an issue. I brought it up last week when we talked Penn State, how that game should have been 21-0, not 13-0 in the first quarter. So when you obviously, we try not to, compare the style opponents week in, week out or whatever, because it doesn't seem to make sense a lot of the time. But when you go up against Ohio State, you do need to at least convert that 3 into 7. And so again, we said before, luckily we got Jake Moody, and he is essentially automatic. And I thought, while it wasn't pretty, the team dominated Michigan State in all 3 phases, outside of 1 or 2 long throws to Keon Coleman. Mind you, Jamon Green played good coverage. He's always had good coverage. He just doesn't turn his head around, and so that wide receiver turns around and makes a play on the ball, and that happens, right? So they got the 7 points early. Michigan found a way to adjust after that, and I don't think Michigan State barely got past the 50-yard line after that. Michigan's defense got a couple sacks, got some pressure up into Peyton Thorne, but really secondary looked great. Makari Page and Rod Moore really coming along. Rod Moore got another interception. Felt like we got a little too conservative. And I know at the end of the game, I think Jim Harbaugh was trying to dial one trick play up out of his sleeve there at the very end, but just couldn't connect. But yeah, definitely need to get this red zone woes under wraps fixed, and really probably should start utilizing our talented wide receivers, start letting this thing air out a little bit. I mean, it seems like AJ Henning went from Deebo Samuel to essentially Dennis Northfleet. He's only returning kickoffs and punt returns. So I just think we need to open it up, and we're late in the season. There's no sense of holding back our playbook just for one game in November. So
I have a couple things to add, but I kind of forgot about it, and you didn't even bring it up. You were there. How was the atmosphere?
I'll be straight honest. The atmosphere was great. In terms of being loud, I felt like it was an ordinary volume, in my opinion. That was the first game being at the Big House where I got to experience the DJ. The DJ was hit or miss, in my opinion. I thought I don't know, it just seemed weird with the DJ, I guess, because that was just my first time. But my section, we were sitting in section 3 with my buddy, and we stood the whole time, didn't have any complaints there. But atmosphere, atmosphere was great, though. I mean, but just definitely felt.
You stood the whole game.
Yeah, we stood the whole game. Yep.
Wow.
Wow. And the crowd, Michigan fans were getting into it. I felt like I've heard louder games before, but that could just be me. It could have been where we sat. We were just across opposite end zone as a student section. But yeah, it was a good time, man. There was a lot of Michigan State fans there. Michigan State fans at the tailgate. Everyone was we'll get to the tunnel thing later, but fans were really respectful. I had not one Michigan State fan said a word to me. I didn't say one word to a Michigan State fan. It was real civil, I guess you could say, and that was a good time.
So the two things I wanted to point out, you had 3 keys to victory.
Yep.
Not turning the ball over. We turned the ball over.
Yep.
Not settling for field goals. We settled ultimately for a lot of field goals.
Yeah.
We were able to overcome those things. Is that a testament to this team? Is it a testament to how bad Michigan State is? Is it a little bit of both? What opinions there?
I think it's a little bit of both. I feel like we get really conservative and we get really predictable, and whoops, Siri goes off my watch. It seemed like we were just doing it just enough to just get by, and again, maybe Michigan State's coverage was a little bit better than we get credit for, but I thought JJ had, at least I felt like at times, was throwing ropes. He had a couple throws to Schoonmaker and down the sideline to the wide receivers, and but yeah, I mean, probably both. And again, this is a big rivalry game, and we talked about last week how the spreads, the stats kind of go out the window for this game, and sometimes this game just kind of looks weird.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of did hold up is the team that wins the rushing battle wins the game. That was Michigan here, and to be honest, it wasn't even close. Blake Corum by himself had 177 yards. Their team had 23 carries for 37 yards. Now, mind you, their leading rusher had 22. JJ had 50. He had a 21-yard carry, so literally his longest carry was as much as their leading rusher had, pretty much. Donovan Edwards added 42, but another dominant ground performance of 52 carries for 276 and a touchdown, which kind of leads me to, I don't know how much we really want to get into this, but just how this team's able to basically do the same thing every week, but ultimately still kind of change some things up. I was talking with a guy at work today. Maybe he listens to this, Notre Dame fan, but he kind of likes Michigan and that side role. But I was telling him, it's like Michigan just plays a brand of bully ball. Like, it's very just like, this is how we want to play. This is how we're going to play. Can you stop us? And, we've talked about this on a multitude of times at this point, but only Georgia's really been able to stop that so far. And, Michigan State's a 3-4 team, so I'm not going to try and make them out to be anything more than they really were. But this is a big time rivalry game. This is their Super Bowl. And for Michigan to kind of come in and just really assert themselves on the offensive line and the defensive line, I thought was just another testament. Again, I know they're a 5-loss team at this point, but anytime you can kind of just get that dominant rivalry victory, it can't be a blemish. It can't just be they beat this team. No, this is still a big time game, and unfortunately, we'll talk about the emotions afterwards. But this meant a lot to both teams, and Michigan was able to kind of just dominate their way through. I think this is probably the spot we can talk about it. So, the tunnel. From what we've seen, there's been a lot of different videos that have been out. I think there's 3 official videos, maybe even 4. The 4th one that I've seen, I'll talk about in a second. There's not really a clear timeline on it, to my knowledge. But the first video that kind of broke loose to the internet, and it kind of came out right away. There was a player wearing the number 1 for Michigan, and he appears to be getting kicked, punched, shoved, drug, everything under the sun by anywhere between 6 to 8 players. It's really hard to really see who's all doing what because there's so many players at once. There was a second video that surfaced. It's a much quicker video of a player getting hit upside the head and from behind with a football helmet. If you have not seen these videos, not to insult you, but you're living under a rock. They're pretty much everywhere at this point. There was a very long video that ESPN shared from their full tunnel. And there was a lot of key points to that one. let's go ahead and start from the very beginning because it sounds like the helmet video with Jermon Green happens first. I don't even know how we're going to break this down, but let's just start here. Opinions on what could have possibly taken place, because we'll never know. What could have possibly taken place to lead a man to hit another man with his helmet after the game?
Well, I tell you what, man, there's always going to be drawn in a rivalry game, and as soon as the whistle was blown in the fourth quarter to signal it's over with, there was John on the field already. You obviously see there's another video that came out where you see Michigan State for the most part is going in the tunnel. You see not Jermon Green, but you see Jane McBurrows is skipping up through the tunnel, right? And
yeah.
there's probably John going on, and it's not the first time, and it's probably some smack talk was dished out, and no matter what anyone excuse me, jeez, no matter what anyone says, I don't think anything should be warranted of wielding a helmet around like a battle axe, and to see one player just get essentially just jumped and curb stomped in front of just a mass of grown adults, and no one does anything about it. It makes you sick to your stomach. To be completely honest, I've seen probably about 3 or 4 of these videos. Well, at least there's 3 tunnel videos that I've seen.
Yeah.
It's personally hard for me to even watch them, and I'm not saying I'm top for my Michigan high horse, but even if it's like on World Star, like it just makes me sick to my stomach watching people fight and other grown adults are not stepping in. Like, I understand not everyone wants to get involved and possibly hurt themselves, but in the first video, you see a police officer standing right there and he's not doing anything. Like, that just irritates me to no end, because who knows what could have been. Who knows? Because it sounds like Jane McBurrows or one of these Michigan players has a broken nose. Maybe that could have been avoided if this guy would have stepped in. And
So let me stop you real quick because we're kind of jumping ahead. So
right.
after the helmet hits are happening, it sounds like McBurrows tries to insert himself as he sees obviously something is clearly wrong. There's being a helmet is being swung, and as soon as he intervenes, the Michigan State team decides they want to intervene, and it becomes basically the one-on-one is off to the side with the helmet, and now McBurrows is getting absolutely ambushed by multiple players. And as you alluded to, there is a police officer standing right there, and he doesn't even look frantic. Is it just me? Is that fair? He doesn't even look concerned.
Yeah, he almost looks like he's an assistant coach or staffer just sitting there like just trying to brace himself. I thought that was really a bad look.
A terrible look.
Yeah.
And then there are at least 2 different cameras that you can see recording the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like, instead of trying to break it up, they're trying to be the first one to get that shit on TikTok. It's like, and I understand that's kind of the world we're in now, is everybody has to have a cell phone and there's a camera and somebody's being watched. And I don't think it has anything to do with being, the ultimate Michigan fan or being on your Michigan high horse. Some people get a kick out of watching videos of people fighting. When 2 people are fighting and it's equal, like a UFC match or a boxing match, it can be pretty entertaining. When it is clear that there's an utter disadvantage, when it's 5-on-1, those videos you see on Twitter where one person's getting just absolutely jumped by 6 people, and then all of a sudden maybe that one person gets a cheap shot in, but it's ugly and it's disgusting. It makes my stomach turn. And then you see those videos of one person's just standing there doing nothing. All of a sudden they just get rocked, or maybe this is in a bathroom and it's clear that one person's way bigger than the other person. That stuff is just like, it's really uncomfortable, like you alluded to. Yeah. And this whole video, I immediately, like, from the time this game ended, I left the Halloween party I was at. I drove roughly 4 minutes to my house because I don't live far away from that party. And by the time I get home, I'm seeing alerts, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm just scrolling through Twitter, and these videos are on just like that. They're up. Mm-hmm. Like, we're talking 20 minutes from the time that, like, the knee is taken to the time the celebration, and all of a sudden this shit's on Twitter. Like
Yeah.
the fact that the videos made it to Twitter that quick is honestly gross. If you think about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it is
Absolutely.
gross. The Draymond Green video didn't come out for like 2 weeks, and it got leaked basically to TMZ. This video was physically posted by a person, like really bonkers if you think about it. Getting to the next video, there's a fourth video that ESPN released. It's like a 4 minute plus video of basically the teams coming down the aisle. And one thing that I thought was very interesting is you can clearly see Mel Tucker punch the door of the locker room. Like he
Yeah.
understands what just took place. And when he was asked at the podium, he said he didn't know. Opinions on that?
Yeah. I, I won't really. I don't know. It's definitely weird. Like, then what were you punching the door for? Then it's very odd, and a lot of emotions are running high. People are under investigation. With the law, so people probably are hesitant to say something or worried that they'll say something that will incriminate somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, that video is disgusting because then you see Jamon Green, holding his arm up, and he's obviously getting double teamed. And real quick, 4 players from Michigan State are suspended right now, and one of them that's not suspended, that's been clearly shown in the video that you just brought up, is Jacoby Windman, the star defensive end for Michigan State. He's clearly in that video, number 4, with his back to the camera, and he's in the altercation, swinging or doing something. So Jamon Green, his family are taking legal action with a local law firm in town, and so obviously this is not even far from over. So over the next course of like 2 weeks, maybe a month, we'll see and get more details on this. But yeah, and also real fast, you left a party and then saw what happened. Like I said, I was at the game with my buddy, and we were using his parents' tickets. His parents have been going to the University of Michigan football games since like the 70s. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Them, they have a parking pass right outside Chrysler in the orange or blue lot, they call it. And he lives in near Lansing. I live down here in Monroe County on the border of Ohio. So I drive up, and I was going to park on the golf course. A lot of people know where the golf course is at, where we tailgate. Well, I was in line for so long, and I decided to pull over to this office building that's right next to and behind the golf course. So I just decided
Off State Street.
Right. Decided to pay $10 less. I'm in a parking lot essentially by myself. I got a cooler with wheels. I'm just going to walk and walk another 10 minutes. So after the game, we stayed till literally we watched Mike Morris hold up Paul Bunyan in front of the student section. We stayed absolutely late as we could. Walk back to his truck, which is like 10 minutes away from the stadium entrance. I grab my stuff and I walk back to my truck. As I'm walking back to my truck, I'm with Michigan fans. They're singing "Go Blue," "Hail the Victors." Everyone's so just in a
Amped. Hype.
great mood, rejoicing. I'm just thinking, smiling to myself because I'm by myself. I'm walking for 20 minutes alone, and I'm just smiling, thinking of all the times of the memories me and my buddy Kenny have, because that's who I went the game with. And I get in my truck, and then I get into traffic, and then all of a sudden I pull up Twitter. I see that you hit me up on Twitter with the videos, and it's like, holy shit! Like all that happened within like just walking back to my vehicle. Then I turn the radio on. I hear, oh, Jim Harbaugh in a few minutes is going to be talking about it at the press conference. I'm like, what the just happened? And then, yeah, sitting in traffic, I watched that video. It made me sick to my stomach. And then right before I got to the freeway, the Michigan State Spartan team was on 5 buses that passed me as they're getting a police escort to I-94. But anyways, I kind of run my time there. But yeah, I just wanted to say that, yeah, it didn't hit me right away either. I just, that great feeling of a victory then kind of turned sour because, 2 players, no matter what they said, they didn't deserve to get jumped by people like that. That's disgusting.
Yeah, I think it does give unfortunately a very sour taste to what was a tremendous victory for both this team and the roadmap that we're on, trying to get back to Indianapolis and get back to the college football playoff. That had to be a W. I don't think there was really any ifs, ands, or buts at this point that needed to be a W, and it was. And obviously, it's quickly overshadowed by the tunnel. I do want to bring up something that I thought, as far as Harbaugh in the post game press conference. He's given, I believe, 3 now at this point. But the second one I thought was one of the more, I don't want to say important ones, but you kind of really got how he feels. So he basically, I'm going to sum it up. I'm not going to quote him at all, but basically like, listen, when these kids commit to me, their parents trust me with their kids as if they're my own. We've talked about this plenty of times. And I just got the vibe that Jim Harbaugh felt like you attacked his children. Like you attacked somebody that he deeply cares about. And the one thing I thought was, it kind of sounds cheesy, but at the same time, it's intended differently than how it comes off. But apology is not going to cut it. Like, don't fucking say you're sorry. Like, that's not going to work in this situation. Like, you physically attacked a person with a weapon, in one case. In the other case, it was an absolute mugging. Multiple people are involved. So, there was one other point. I don't know where else it would fit in besides right here. I'm watching the game with my buddy. I guess he's my wife's cousin's husband. He knows who he is. He listens. But we're watching the game, and he pointed something out. And as soon as he said it, like I thought it too. Like it happened so quickly. And you at the game probably would have never seen this. But I thought it's something that if you watched the game and you've seen it, it would have touched you a little bit. So deep, I believe it was into the third quarter, there was a point where Blake had come off the field. He had just got done running for like another first down, like he typically does. And he has a very just like determined face. And they show the interaction of him running off the sideline. He comes face to face with Harbaugh, and you can see Harbaugh say something to him, and Blake immediately gets a smile from ear to ear. Just like you could see it. Like it was just like, and he said it to me. I immediately like reacted back. I'm like, dude, these kids love to play for Harbaugh. Like that is one thing. Like it's so evident. It is so apparent. Like it's just, there is no denial that when these Wolverines walk on the field, they want to play for him. And the way that he treated them in the press conference and the way he talked about them and the way that you continuously see this team react towards him, it's just like, it's so crystal clear. Yeah. And, I'm thankful that after we tried to run him out of town, he's still here. So,
yeah.
Boy, oh boy. Lots and lots there. Any other... I'll bring it up, even though I don't think it's necessarily warranted for a response, but I know that you have an opinion on it because you've posted about it a few times. Lots of Michigan State fans trying to defend this. Opinions on that?
I gotta say this right now. Between other Michigan State podcasts, the fans on Twitter, it's an absolute cesspool, dude. Some of these things on here, they're not like necessarily justifying anything in a way, but one podcast, the clip got tweeted out and I tagged you in it. The host of the show was like, Michigan player, go fuck around, find out. Like, dude, how much of an imbecile can you be? Understandably, on the outside looking in, Jane McBurrows and Jamon Green, whether it's their first time or not going up the tunnel first before anyone else does, it probably in this situation probably wouldn't have been smart for them to wait because of just the intensity of both teams not liking each other and the way that we're at the status of this rivalry at the moment. They probably should have hung back and not thrown gasoline on the fire. But no one deserves to get jumped by like that. And this is absolutely disgusting. And all these Michigan State Twitter accounts, these fans are just moving the goalposts as usual. Oh, well, Jim Harbaugh still he's 2-1 versus Mel now. Yeah, who cares? Like Michigan or like Ohio State, Michigan State fans, whatever, they want to give Michigan fans crap for living in the past or whatever like that. That's all that Michigan State has been doing over these last few days and leading up to this game. But just regarding this tunnel thing, it's just been absolutely disgusting. We could probably spend another 20 minutes talking specifically about things, but to go and then be like, well, this is just how their program is. Like, look at the thing with Penn State last week. Like the Penn State thing last week, you want to know the difference about that? Is Penn State players were throwing Uncrustables at Michigan players. James Franklin looks like the adult out of everybody because he's the one that was yelling back at Harbaugh and not separating his players or getting intervened. The thing about last week was, or 2 weeks ago, was the Penn State players were walking up the tunnel simultaneously with Michigan players, smiling, joking, talking. And then there was clips of the Michigan Hawaii players hanging out during that game at halftime watching the TV together, watching like ESPN. So, like, it can be done. And I understand those aren't Michigan State games, or that's not a Michigan State team. But to act like all that we do is create drama. It's like we've been going in and out of this tunnel for over almost 100 years, and we have never had an issue like this before, not once, even with Ohio State. Ohio State 2013, we had that altercation on the field, whatever. That happens. I mean, whether you can justify that or not, there's pushing and shoving, there's flags thrown. And that one Ohio State player walked off the field, became a meme because he was up there flipping off the crowd going into the tunnel, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? That game ended without a fight, physically.
Yeah.
So these Michigan State fans can go kick rocks. They can eat shit. They can enjoy being 3-5, and they can go into this Saturday expecting to get their ass kicked by Illinois, which I hope that happens. But I hope that Jacoby Windman faces the music here soon, because I know he will. And another thing that they were pointing out is that a Michigan fan was trying to reach Mel Tucker's head when he was walking up the tunnel, and then Mel Tucker tried to swing around and swat it away. And from Seth Fisher, who's an editor on MGO blog, that Michigan fan, or whoever fan he is of that, because he was wearing a maroon jacket, he's forever barred from Michigan events. So we took care of our business. Your coach needs to go out there and take care of his business. Yeah, he suspended 4 players, but this is far from over. And so that's what I'll say about that is, eat shit.
Yeah.
I've never been more disgusted with. I've already do not like Michigan State fans as it is. And I know every fan base has got their cornballs, but oh my God, it's absolutely just a cesspool, straight cesspool.
Yeah, so the remarks that I keep seeing, I've seen a lot of these, and it's really gross. And I'm going to compare it to something, and I feel like it's justifiable to say this. So, McDougal or McDuffie or whatever it is, he's a backup player. He doesn't play a lot. He was skipping up into the tunnel.
Yeah.
And the comments made are, if you're skipping, you're basically bringing it upon yourself. You're talking trash. You're bringing it upon yourself. And it's very remindant of the girl who wore too revealing clothes and deserved to get raped. Like, that's literally where I feel like we're at. Like, so you mean to tell me somebody does something that you think doesn't equal up, therefore they need to be punished in ways that are unforgivable? Like, and I'm by no means am I indicating that rape and fighting is the same, but a 6-on-1 attack because this dude was talking trash to you, yeah, sorry, that doesn't equal out to me. So it's very gross to me that people have this concept of fuck around and find out, or shouldn't have talked shit, or don't be skipping. It's so idiotic and so just like, is that where we're at? Is that where we're at? Oh, I haven't said to you, I can't imagine putting idiotic thoughts out simply because I don't like a program.
Right. And real quick too, just remind me, like I don't really listen to 97 Win the Ticket very much anymore, but I turned it on yesterday because I wanted to hear at least their initial comments, and the two dopes that went to Michigan State or Spartan fans, at least from 2 to 6 or 2 to 6, and they're both going on there. Well, Jim Harbaugh didn't help out the situation by trying to do a trick play late in the fourth quarter. It's like, bro, when the game was like, really, dude, really, a trick play is going to make you guys upset. Like 2016, you guys were down 2 possessions. D'Antonio scores and then tries to do a 2-point conversion when the game is clearly out of reach, and then Jabril Peppers picks up the fumble and takes it to the house.
Yeah.
Points. Like, do you think that if you guys would have got the 2-point conversion, that Jabril Peppers would have taken his helmet off and beaten somebody with it because you guys went for 2 for that didn't make any sense? I just when he said that made that comment, I'm like, you guys, I'm done, man. That's what I said. I'm done with Michigan State. I kept receipts on all these idiots that kept saying that they were going to beat us, and all I know is I'm going to be a Fighting Illini fan come Saturday because I swear to God, I hope they get absolutely demolished. But yeah,
One last thing, and I forget who said this, but I've heard this before, and it became so much more evident after this weekend.
yeah,
Michigan Ohio State is the number one rivalry in America, and a lot of it is built on respect.
yeah,
We hate each other, but we know this is for the Big Ten. This is for the trip to the Rose Bowl back in the day. Now it's a trip to Indianapolis. Like there's so much on the line when this game happens that the after the game it's just like we were beat fair and square. We move on, right? Obviously, they're a rival. We don't like them. They don't like us. The Michigan State, and that's kind of where you get the little brother name. It's almost built on like this very it's almost undescribable. Like it just doesn't have that same respect factor. It's very like, and this is kind of where they get the little brother name. It's like they're constantly just nicking at us, trying to get us to respond to them. As soon as we do, it's like ha ha ha, kind of like that,
yeah.
like just like a shoe fly, don't bother me style. And after they lose, they pull this, and I've said this a million times. If it's a one-on-one fight between two players on the field, nobody says a word about it. But a 6-on-1 in the tunnel, it can't be, and it's a reflection of the program. And I personally, I mean, who knows where it goes from here? But it's just a difference in how these two programs
well,
are viewed.
well, I mean, you said it without saying it. Is like with Ohio State, Michigan, there's respect there. I just Michigan State, they don't feel like we respect them at all because it's been outwardly said that we don't take the game as seriously as they do, so they feel belittled all the time. So, but yeah, like for real though, they definitely just keep poking the bear, and they expect the response. When they get the response, it's like, hey, I told you so. But yeah, definitely, like I said, man, all week or these last 2 weeks, it's just been all talking shit, and then you go ahead and you beat them, and then it's like, oh well, we still got these last 10 years, we still got the edge. I'm like, so yes, we move the goalposts to fit your narrative. Whatever. The reason why I'll close with this before we move on to our likes. The reason why I hate Michigan State so much more than Ohio State is because growing up, when I was in school, I'm 33, right? When I was growing up, we kicked their ass way more times than that, and we were on a 6-game winning streak before we got rid of Lloyd Carr and brought in Rich Rodriguez, and then they excelled when we were down, right? So
Yeah.
then, just like when the Chicago Cubs won the World Series in 2016, everyone's a fucking Chicago Cubs fan. When Michigan State starts winning, everyone's a Michigan State fan now. It's bumper stickers, license plate. Everyone's a Spartard, right? And so, like, and Michigan fans, obviously, if you part of the old guard or old enough to know when the rivalry was different, it's like you start getting pissed off because you're like, this isn't how it always used to be. So this rivalry is completely, absolutely disgusting right now and nasty. And while I close, like I said, I'll ask you this question before we move on to the likes. Is do you think that, I know we're scheduled to play them next year, do you think that this rivalry needs like a 2-3 year break?
No. No. Especially because I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume, just like I don't assume that all police officers are bad because you see some police brutality, and just like I don't assume that I don't try to characteristic everybody. There are 100 players on that roster. Roughly 4 got suspended. I think there's probably roughly 4 more that will. That's less than 10% of their roster that are dirtbags. Okay. No, I think this is a top tier program in Division I football. They just need to act like it. And this is a black eye for their program, as it should be. And And to be honest, I think this team takes another step backwards next year, which will lead me to my question that I have due later. I'll ask it later, but yeah, I just think that this doesn't need a break. I've also seen the question of, does this need to move to Ford Field for just a neutral site for a couple of years? I don't know. I think that's a bad idea.
No, neutral sites take away the feel of college football. College football deserves home field advantage for one team. That's why when they do this college football playoff, everything deserves to be played away at somebody's home den. It does not need to be at Jerry World. Does not need to be at Ford Field. That just, to me, just ruins the game. It ruins the pageantry, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Let's talk about what we liked. I'll let you go first.
What I like, man, is just straight up getting Paul back, man. That is just a great feeling. And then making Michigan State one-dimensional. We took away their run game. They couldn't do shit on the ground. And outside of those couple air yard plays, like I said, man, we had good coverage. They got talent at wide receiver, and they made a play, right? That just happens. Even in the games earlier this year, Michigan, they give up one or two plays through the air, whatever, it happens, man. Can't be perfect. And then getting off the field on third downs. Michigan State was 2 for 11 on third down. That was huge too. And especially after that punt that they muffed or whatever, field position played a big thing. But between those two things, absolutely.
For as something that alludes to the game, I put Jake Moody. It's just nice to be able to rely on a clutch kicker that's going to get you 3 when you need it. I think you had him as one of your likes a couple weeks ago, and I felt like I needed to plug him this week because I thought he was huge in this game. The second thing I have is the winning streak versus the Big Ten. We currently have a winning record or on a current winning streak against every single team in the Big Ten. I don't know the last time that happened, but that's pretty freaking cool. We have a winning streak against every single one of our rivals right now, including Notre Dame. We're just, as of right now, this is, I don't know how else you can be back without being back. Like, this is, Michigan's as back as they can possibly be right now. I think this team is trending in an all-time high projection. Like, if they go down, I'd like to know how it happened, because right now they're sitting really pretty. They control everything they want to control. So
absolutely. Real quick too, like you said,
yeah, go ahead.
Michigan's back, right? And
yeah.
I always was saying I was kind of in the minority when 2016, when up until Ohio State, 2018 revenge tour, everyone's like, "Oh, Michigan's back, Michigan's back." I said, "No, Michigan's not back till they win the Big Ten." They did that last year, and right now, the last time they played every one of their opponents, they've won. So, like you said, yeah, keep onward and upward, man.
Yeah, and to be honest, of all people that I know that I talk Michigan with, you've always been the pessimist. You've always been like, you got to prove it to me. You got to prove it to me. What else I got to do? I mean, this is as close to being back as you could possibly be. So, yeah. Disliked. I'll start. Jake Moody. I love you, Jake. You were great. I liked you, but too much. Too much Jake Moody. We need to finish in the red zone. And part of that could just simply be they weren't looking much into Michigan State. I think they thought they can just beat them with what they had. Maybe they didn't throw the kitchen sink out there, and we can get mad about that if we want. But at the same time, last year there were several games where we won comfortably, where people were like, "Man, we struggled in that game," or "Man, winning ugly." How many times did that happen last year? And when it came down to it, I think it's pretty apparent this team likes to play one way. And they've yet to find a team in the Big Ten that has forced them to play a different way. Yep. The only team that has forced this team to play a different way is Georgia. And last time I checked, they're not on our schedule yet. So as of right now, I dislike that Jake Moody was out there too much, but at the same time, can't complain.
Right. And kind of, we both alluded to it. You just now, me earlier. Too much Jake Moody. And like we touched on, the keys to the victory was convert the 3 to the 7, and we just didn't do that. And I don't know if they need to be more creative in the red zone. I don't know if they need to start running more motion. I don't know, do something. They have they got too much talent at wide receiver and tight end to not be a little bit more RPO or play action bootleg-ish and down there. But I mean, I feel like sometimes we just get content, and if Jim Harbaugh feels that our defense isn't going to let you get past the 50-yard line, maybe he's just like, fuck it, I'll take 3 points. Who cares? You ain't gonna do shit on our defense. Maybe that's what he's thinking. But yeah, that's what I didn't like.
As far as more of, first, I have 2 things again. The one is obvious. The more I see Blake Corum, the happier I am. Not even just because I have money on him winning the Heisman this year, just because he's been an absolute beast, the way he's carried this team. If you listen to this podcast weekly, you've heard me talk about it multiple times. I am still in awe of how Blake Corum is able to shoulder the load that he is asked to shoulder every single week. It's something I did not know he could do. Fun fact, Hassan Haskins last year, the most carries he took in a game was 27. Blake's done that 4 times already this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Blake is doing something that I just didn't know that he was capable of. Yeah. And then second thing, what do I want more of? I want more goals to be checked off. This weekend, we were able to check off one of our 4 goals, beating Michigan State. The next 3, beating Ohio State, winning the Big Ten championship, and going to the college football playoffs, winning a national championship. More goals. That's what I want more of.
Yeah, I just want to sling the rock more. Kind of piggybacking off of what I didn't like is, like I said, we got too many wide receivers, too much talent, and we want to try to get Jane Davis in here, the next 5-star quarterback to commit. He just visited, and crystal ball is kind of projected to come here anyways. But we want to get top tier wide receiver talent to compete with Ohio State, whatever. And if Ohio State wide receivers have Michigan or Ohio State down to their final 4 or final 3 or whatever to choose from, I mean, they're going to pick Ohio State if they're going to pass every team. And I understand, I've always said that I don't care if we run the triple option as long as it works, but I also want to be more balanced as well. And again, we got a lot of talent, and a lot of people are calling for Angelo Anthony. He's been calling for his name pretty much all season. And Cornelius Johnson, he fumbled the ball this week. He had an up and down game versus Indiana. So a lot of people are calling for the swap there. But we need to get AJ Henning, getting him some more touches. He went, like I said earlier, he went from Debo to punt returner, Dennis Norfleet. So got to get these guys involved. And if we're withholding the playbook I also alluded to that earlier, like we're in November now. Open it up. It's not like Ohio State's not going to see that they haven't seen on film on us already. So let's open it up. Let's get JJ some numbers, and JJ should have 2 touchdown passes a game. But again, our bread and butter are going back to the wells, Blake Corum. But we have to stay balanced.
Anything else on Michigan State before we go any farther?
Other than to hell with them, go Fighting Illini. I got nothing for them scumbags.
Yeah. Paul Bunyan's back home. We'll see you next year. Hopefully you're better. This week at Rutgers, 7:30, Big Ten Network. Michigan's favored by 23. Because we went so long on Michigan State and we have a lot to talk about, I didn't want to take a ton of time talking to Rutgers. I mean, this is a team that we've kind of been able to really handle. They did get us once, but it's been years ago. I forget the year they beat us, but
we've played them 8 times. They got us the first time we played them in 2014 in our dog ass year.
Yes. So yeah, we fired Brady Hoke after that year. So if that tells you anything. But yeah, this is a team that we've been able to kind of control. We did struggle with them at home last year, though. That was actually one of our worst games of the year outside of the loss to Michigan State, was the game against Rutgers, shockingly. I think Michigan wins this game. They're going to do a lot of the same things. Control the clock, control the ground game. I would like this to be the game that we kind of try and throw it around a little bit. That would be nice, as you alluded to. But this should be a W. Hopefully this isn't some sort of like lingering trap game where now that you've beaten Michigan State and everything that happens with this whole tunnel thing is like dragging into this week and we're not preparing enough because of it. And then all of a sudden Rutgers gives us a scare. I mean, that's what I hope doesn't happen. I doubt it. This team just doesn't seem like it's susceptible to that, but
Right.
opinions on Rutgers.
Yeah, Rutgers scoring defense, they're 45th in the country, so they're kind of middle of the pack. Scoring offense, they're almost dead last. So, in terms of nationally in yards giving up, they're giving up 295 a game, which is 13th best. So their defense has got somewhat of my respect. So when I read that, I'm like, man, is this going to be kind of like last year where we have some struggle bus moments to try to move the ball on them? But they've had 4 or 5 quarterbacks each take snaps under center because they've just been in a rotating carousel. Gavin Wimsatt, who's a 4-star actually, he left the game early last week due to a brain injury and a head injury. So remains to be seen if he starts. They've already changed their offensive coordinator during the season. Between all of their QBs, they got 7 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, and they lost 31-0 to Minnesota last week while Mohamed Ibrahim ran for like a $150 and 3 touchdowns. So that kind of gives me confidence that we can run the ball on them. So we'll see how it is. I think this is going to be, in terms of score, I bet you this is similar, in my opinion, to Michigan State last weekend, 29-7, 30-10, something like that. I think we do enough to just break their will and probably going to rely on the run. I want to see them open up through the air. That's all I want to see right now. But I think they're just going to go on the well, go back to the well and get the Blake Corum show going. But we'll see how it goes.
Off to the mailbag here. So I have a question for you before we get to Jamie's question.
All right.
What would you do with Mel Tucker and his 10-year, $95 million contract?
What would I do if I was Mel Tucker?
No, what would you do with him? You're the AD at Michigan State. Is he safe right now? Is he on the hot seat at all?
I don't think he's on the hot seat just because of what happened in 2021 alone. They had a pretty historic year after a pretty abysmal 2020, even though they.
You mean Kenneth Walker had a historic year?
I tell you what, though, Mel Tucker definitely, if it was an NCAA violation, he definitely needs to be, Venmoing Kenneth Walker a few dollar bills here and there, because he definitely got it off his back, at least partially.
Yeah.
I don't think Mel Tucker's on the hot seat just yet. We obviously have to see how they play out the rest of the season, of course, but I think he's safe for this season no matter what happens. I think it's going to really come down to next year because Michigan State, they've lost a lot of recruits over these last 2 weeks, a lot. Before this Michigan game, they lost like 4 recruits, and one of them was like a top dog running back, and that running back was recruiting a lot of their other guys. And so he's been relying since he's been here. Again, he's only going his 3rd year. 2.5 you don't want to count the COVID year for a full season. He's been relying a lot on the transfer portal. Michigan State was one of they were one of the most sought after program in the transfer portal this past offseason. Grabbing anyone who they get. So speaking of that was Kenneth Walker from outside the program already, but I just think he's going to be safe for this year, but next year I think it's going to be do or die, and that's a lot of money to be paying a guy to take 3rd, 4th place, or right now, underneath Indiana.
So Jamie comes in and he writes, "What is your college football playoff bracket?" If you guys haven't seen, the college football rankings officially came out. This is what they would basically, if the season ended today, these are the 4 teams that would make the college football playoff. And then it shows you the 2 they have outside. So it's Tennessee 1, or Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, Clemson 4. So it would be Tennessee versus Clemson, Ohio State versus Georgia, Michigan at 5, Alabama at 6, TCU at 7. So Before we answer your question, Jamie, the one thing that I did notice, and tell me if you agree or disagree, is it even possible for TCU to get in? TCU being behind Alabama at 6 needs Michigan to lose, needs Alabama to lose again, would need Clemson or Georgia to lose, right?
Yeah.
Is that they need 3 different teams to lose in order for them to get in, even if they were undefeated. Because if they go undefeated, they can't get in right now.
They'll be the first team shafted in the Pac-12s. The Pac-12 champions are going to have one loss, so the Pac-12 is probably already on the outside looking in now. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for a team that's not in the SEC or Big Ten to get in, or ACC if Clemson goes. But yeah,
Yeah, I think TCU's played good enough ball that they deserve to be in. But to answer Jamie's questions, what are your 4 this week if you had to select a Final Four?
I have no problem with the top 4 except for the 4th and 5th team. I don't see why Clemson's ahead of Michigan in this. Michigan's ahead of them in both the AP and the coaches poll. Michigan deserves to be number 4. I compare Michigan and Clemson's schedule. I think Michigan's got a far better resume than Clemson does. Absolutely. I understand first 3 games that Michigan played were cupcakes, but I mean, Furman and Louisiana Tech and Georgia Tech, miss me, dude. Miss me. Michigan got hosed, but the thing is what I always say: take care of your business.
Mm-hmm.
Fall where they fall. Michigan goes out and beats Ohio State like we think they can. We won't have this conversation again.
Yeah, the one thing I guess, and I've said this in so many times, like this is annoying to see that Michigan was kind of disrespected and left out, but ultimately it doesn't matter because all of these teams, literally Tennessee, Georgia, are going to play this weekend.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about that game in a minute, so don't give any predictions. But they literally play this weekend. Clemson plays Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's actually playing good football these last couple weeks. They're on upset alert. I mean, we could literally see Michigan right back in there after this weekend, depending on what happens. But I guess to what you just said, I'll agree. Sorry. Has Michigan played a close game? Even one. Their close game was Maryland, right?
That's literally their closest game, and that game obviously you had the garbage time touchdown at the end, and Grant, whatever.
And they still won by how much?
34-27.
So they won by a score with a garbage time backdoor cover.
And real quick, Clemson at Wake Forest, which was 21st at the time, 51.
They're ranked. They're still ranked.
5. NC State 30-20, and Florida State unranked 34-28. Syracuse they just beat or whatever that was ranked as well 27-21. So Clemson has been far more in tighter net battles than U of M has been. Absolutely.
Now, mind you, 3 of those 4 teams you just read off have been ranked this year, so I'll give them that credit. Actually, Florida State may have even been ranked for a cup of coffee, but Michigan's top opponent they played this year was ranked, I believe, somewhere between 12 and 10 when they played them, Penn State, and they blew them off the field. And that same Penn State team went for 3.5 quarters with Ohio State this weekend. So I don't know. It goes back to what I've been saying all along. Michigan is almost they have to go undefeated to get in. It's there's like this. There's somewhat of a disrespect there for whatever reason. Nobody's able to put them 1 or 2 or 3. They are constantly 4. In this case, now 5. Like I said, it would probably be a couple weeks ago. So I wasn't shocked to see it. It was one of those things like, of course you would go with this narrative that Michigan can't be in the top 4. Of course. It makes total sense. Anything else on the college football playoff at this time?
No, I'm good.
Big games this week. Week 10 games. Start off big one. Number 2 let's use the college football playoff rankings. Number 1, Tennessee at number 3, Georgia. This is as big as it gets.
Yes, I said last week or the week before when we were doing our playoff predictions there, I got Tennessee. I ride with them to the SEC championship in the Vols.
Yeah.
And they're 8.5 point dogs, man. That's
who is
Tennessee. Tennessee is 8.5 point dogs.
The last time they were 7.5 point dogs were against Alabama. I took them on the money line. So there's money to be won there if you think Tennessee's winning this game, guys.
Yep.
I will say this. When Georgia over the last 2 seasons has needed to beat somebody, they've done it. Their one let me up game was their game against Alabama during the regular season. And then they played them again in the SEC title game. Or I'm sorry, they lost in the SEC title game. They played them in the college football playoffs, and they, boom, right in the national championship game, they smacked them. So this Georgia team, it's not the same team as last year, but they still are really good. They get up for these big games. They smacked Oregon this year. They've beaten a couple of other teams, but nothing really to the level at Tennessee. Tennessee is, man, they've played as good as football as anybody in the country this year, and I thought they did deserve to be number 1. I feel like it's unpopular. Give me Georgia at home. Close. Real close. I don't know why. I just get the vibes that Georgia on the road or at home finds enough to play some hard-nosed defense and gets it done. Stetson Bennett, game of his life. Wouldn't be shocked to see Tennessee. I will say this. If somebody gets blown out, it's going to be Georgia. I think Tennessee has the firepower, but Georgia just seems like they're more complete. Tennessee doesn't have the greatest defense. They've given up big points to Florida and LSU and some other teams too. Speaking of LSU, speaking of Bama, so number 6 Alabama at number 15 LSU. LSU starting to really turn a corner here. Alabama obviously dropped a game a couple weeks ago to Tennessee. Death Valley at night is no place to fuck with. This game's at 7:00. Where are you going here?
Because of Death Valley, because of the location, the time, I'm gonna go with LSU here. The spread is they're 13.5 point dogs to Alabama right now. I don't think Alabama's gonna cover that. And
Man.
I'm just gonna give the nod to LSU here because they're at home and Brian Kelly seems to win one big game once a year. I know they've won a couple good ones this year as well, but I think this is just prime time for Brian Kelly and his family to get this home W against the Alabama Crimson Tide because I've been in South Bend for 10 years, but I got roots down here in Cajun country. So give me that little red troll, aka Brian Kelly, to win this one.
Oh gosh. I will say this game screams an Alabama blowout. Nick Saban has always kind of beaten up on Brian Kelly. But this Alabama team just isn't the same team that we've seen in years past, and this LSU team seems to be getting better every week. They lost their first 2 games, and they've won everyone since. Death Valley at night, tough place to play. Give me LSU straight up. I think they take the W there. Number 5, Clemson at Notre Dame. Notre Dame was absolute dog water to start the year, and they've been much better over the last couple of weeks. They upset Syracuse last week too. Where are you going here? You think Clemson takes care of business? Or you think Notre Dame's got to fight for him?
Man, well, for Michigan's sake, I'd like to see Clemson lose, but I still don't trust Notre Dame. I'm gonna go with Dabo here. I'm gonna take Clemson.
Yeah, I think Clemson's too much for Notre Dame right now. The one thing about Clemson is, while I'm not one of those guys that says Clemson can't beat anybody. Clemson can play. I don't know why there's this narrative that Clemson can't play. They can. But they do have a quarterback controversy, which isn't a good thing to going into South Bend. Notre Dame would have to play the game of their life. I don't think they will. Give me Clemson close. Two teams that we've really not talked about on the pod, but it is ranked, so I'll bring it up. Number 20, Wake Forest at number 21, NC State. Doesn't have a ton of implications. I think Wake Forest has played better ball this year. It is a road game. I guess give me NC State. Do you have an opinion either way?
Now they're Wake Forest is favored here by 4.5. I'm going to take NC State though, just like you.
Yeah. I only put this on here because I feel like it needs to be at least talked about with because of this podcast. Michigan State's at number 14, Illinois. Any way that Michigan State comes in there gets a W.
Hell no, dude. Hell no. Brett Bielema, give me that cholesterol size. You know what, Ski. I'll take Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini here. They're doing really good things right now. And Michigan State is coming off a pretty traumatic game against U of M. And, maybe not traumatic is the word I'm using, but probably an emotional one, right? And they're down 4 players, and we don't know. I mean, it's Tuesday now, right? Tuesday at 9:00 Eastern. We don't know if they're going to be getting more players suspended. I feel like they're going to have a hard time trying to focus, and they might prove me wrong, but I'll take the Fighting Illini here.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because if Illinois wins this game and their next game, you'd have to believe they would find themselves right around 10 or even higher into the top 10. And if Michigan hosts them for Senior Day in Ann Arbor, would College Game Day be there for a Michigan and Illinois matchup?
Right.
Like, that's got to be on the table, isn't it?
I would assume so. Absolutely.
I mean, I would absolutely think so. I mean, just quickly here. So obviously Michigan, they play Rutgers this week.
You forgot one game though. Texas at Kansas State.
Yeah, but Kansas State's not ranked. Wait.
They are.
Kansas State's ranked. Sorry, Texas isn't though, are they?
Yeah, they're 24th.
Oh, okay. So Texas and Kansas State?
Yeah.
After what I just watched last Saturday, I watched a good portion of Kansas State giving it to Oklahoma State. Yeah, no, Kansas State by a lot.
Yeah, same. And I texted you about that too. Kansas State, when we did when we were going through these games last week, I thought I picked Oklahoma State. Kansas State went out there and blew them out 48-0 with a backup quarterback. Adrian Martinez didn't even play.
Yeah.
So caught me off guard. But you're right. Like Texas though, we've talked about them throughout the season so far. When they got these stretch of games here, where now they got to play TCU next weekend. Like I thought they would at least lose one. I think now they're on pace to lose all 3 of these ranked games. And yeah, Texas is going to go from having a pretty hopeful beginning of the year to shit. We're going to be looking at building on to 2023 already. But yeah, Kansas State caught me off guard. They almost lost to TCU, and TCU had a dig down deep in that game to beat them. And so yeah, I'll take the Wildcats.
So if Michigan and Illinois were to play each other in a couple of weeks, Illinois only having 1 loss, Michigan having none, it would be a 5 versus, or wherever Michigan is versus wherever Illinois is. But the other games that weekend, USC at UCLA, both teams currently only have 1 loss. That would be a big one. And then Utah at Oregon. So Oregon's already hosted game day once. I doubt it gets another one, but just something to keep an eye on. Anything else as we head into Rutgers this weekend, move past Michigan State and onward with our goals?
No, man, just excited we got Paul Bunyan out of the way, and we get through this final home stretch here of the Big Ten season, and if we can cross off that third to last check mark of beating Ohio State before we get to the Big Ten championship and the Natty, but that's asking a lot. But players are ready to do it, and we can go in there and win in Columbus for the first time since the George W. Bush administration. That'd be monumental.
Yeah. So Joe Klatt gives his initial reaction to Michigan before we log off here.
Yeah.
He says, I thought Michigan would land at 4. However, to get them there, the committee would need to be able to watch film and know that what they're looking at. The Michigan non-conference schedule was a joke. So agree, disagree. I know we typically agree with what Klatt says, but basically saying, listen, Michigan didn't have enough non-conference there to really put them above Clemson.
I mean, like I said earlier, like neither did Clemson. Louisiana Tech, Furman, and then Georgia Tech. Like Georgia Tech is historically has got some little chime to the name there, but it's not Calvin Johnson Georgia Tech anymore, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I know I don't know the records offhand, but I'm pretty sure Colorado State's dog ass, and so is Hawaii. But UConn's UConn. But I mean, whatever. If you want to give the slight nod to Clemson because of Georgia Tech, I can understand that. But regardless, I feel like all 6 of those teams are trash. But like I said, go out there and do your thing, man. You ain't got to worry about
it. One more thing before we go here. He writes, the top 16 teams in the AP have a total of 14 losses. Okay? Only 3 of those losses came at home. So basically, it is so tough to beat a top 16 team at home. Like it's almost impossible. The only three that have happened this year were a team beat a top 16 team at home. Can you name them?
No, I can't. Tell me.
Okay. Tulane beat Kansas State.
Okay.
Okay. Tennessee beat LSU.
Okay.
And then Ohio State beat Penn State. Okay. That's it. Those are the only ones. So obviously we're not barn burners over Kansas State, LSU, and Penn State, but still, I mean, those are
right.
But I think that's it. Anything else?
Nope. Just gonna sit down in front of my TV and watch Brian Kelly trying to upset the Crimson Tide all Saturday. But other than that, go find the line. I go blue.
All right, we're out. Paul Bunyan's back. Real talk.
Go blue, buddy.